Have you ever walked into a room full of people, and the second you step through the door, your heart starts racing? You feel that knot in your stomach, and suddenly the whole world seems to be watching you. Your mind goes blank, and you just want to disappear. If you've been there, you're not alone. Social anxiety is something so many of us deal with, but what if I told you that there's a way to not only manage it, but overcome it? I've been in that place too. It can feel really isolating, like you're the only one who's struggling to navigate social situations without the constant pressure or self-doubt. But here's the good news. There's a powerful tool that's been around for centuries, something that can help you transform the way you experience social anxiety. And that tool is Stoic philosophy. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What does ancient philosophy have to do with my modern-day anxiety? Well, stick with me, because Stoicism has some really powerful lessons that can change the way we approach social situations. And trust me, you're going to feel so much lighter once you start applying these principles. So today, let's talk about how to use Stoic principles to overcome social anxiety. We're going to dive into some real practical advice that you can start applying right now to shift your mindset and free yourself from that constant fear of judgment or rejection. Before we dive into the Stoic solutions, let's first take a moment to understand social anxiety a little better. If you've ever felt like you're under a microscope in social situations, or like you're constantly worrying about how others perceive you, you're not alone. Social anxiety can feel overwhelming. It makes us second-guess ourselves, overthink every word, and stay up at night replaying conversations we had, wondering what we could have done differently. But here's the thing, social anxiety doesn't come from the world itself. It comes from the way we interpret the world. That's where Stoicism comes in. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering comes from how we perceive things, and that our thoughts shape our emotions. So, the good news is, if we change how we think about social situations, we can change how we feel in them. I know it sounds like a big shift, but trust me, it's possible, and we're going to break it down step by step. One of the core principles of Stoicism is learning to distinguish between what we can control and what we can't. If you think about your social anxiety, most of it comes from worrying about things that are outside your control, like how others perceive you or what they think about you when you say something awkward. These thoughts feed into your anxiety, making you believe that everything is at stake in every interaction. But here's the Stoic perspective. You can't control what others think or say about you. That's not your responsibility, and it's not something you can change. The only thing you can control is how you respond to situations and how you choose to think about them. This is a game changer when it comes to managing social anxiety. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a party and you're nervous about how you're coming across. Maybe you say something a little awkward, or you feel like people aren't paying attention to you. In that moment, the Stoic response would be to remind yourself, I can't control how others react, but I can control my own response. So instead of spiraling into self-doubt and panic, you can choose to focus on how you want to feel in that moment. You can decide to let go of worrying about others' opinions and simply enjoy being in the room, being yourself. It's not about perfecting your behavior or pleasing everyone around you. It's about letting go of the need to control what's beyond your reach and focusing on your own peace of mind. This, my friend, is freedom. Another powerful Stoic tool that can help with social anxiety is learning to shift your focus. When we're anxious about social situations, our focus tends to be entirely inward. We're thinking about how we're coming across, whether we're being judged, whether we're being accepted. And this inward focus only amplifies our anxiety. The Stoics, however, encourage us to focus on what's within our control, which is how we show up in the world. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoics, said something like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is huge. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and someone approaches you. Instead of worrying about how they might judge your appearance or what you'll say next, focus on what you can bring to the interaction. Focus on how you want to be in that moment. Do you want to be kind, curious, open? The more you shift your focus away from how others might view you and instead focus on how you want to show up, the less power anxiety will have over you. It's like taking your energy away from the fear of judgment and redirecting it toward being the person you want to be in the world. The more you practice this, the more confident and comfortable you'll feel in social situations because you're not carrying the heavy weight of self-judgment. This next point is so important. Stoicism teaches us to embrace imperfection. And let me tell you, social anxiety thrives in the need for perfection. We want to say the perfect thing, look the perfect way, or have the perfect response. But here's the truth, no one is perfect, and that's okay. The Stoics believed that life is full of challenges, and part of being human is accepting that we're not going to get everything right. Epictetus, another key Stoic philosopher, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So when you make a mistake in a conversation, or you feel like you've said something wrong, remember that this is part of being human. Instead of seeing these moments as failures or as signs that you're inadequate, try reframing them as opportunities for growth. Maybe you said something awkward, but now you know what not to say next time. Maybe you fumbled with your words, but that's okay. You're learning, you're growing, and you're embracing imperfection. By accepting that social interactions are messy and unpredictable, you take away the pressure of being perfect, and you free yourself to just be. When you let go of perfectionism, social anxiety loses its grip on you. Finally, let's talk about mindfulness and acceptance. Stoics were masters at practicing mindfulness, not in the way we might think of it today, but in being fully present in the moment, accepting whatever comes their way, and not letting it disturb their peace of mind. Next time you're in a social situation, try this simple practice. Take a few deep breaths and focus on what's happening right now. Instead of letting your mind race with what ifs and what do they think of me, tune into your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? How does the room feel? When you focus on the present moment, you're no longer consumed by anxiety about the past or future. You're simply being, and that is so powerful. The more you practice this mindfulness, the easier it becomes to let go of your worries about how you're being perceived. You start to realize that most of those fears are just thoughts, not facts. And the more you practice Stoic acceptance, the more you'll find that your anxiety lessens over time. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into how you can start applying these Stoic principles in your own life when it comes to social anxiety. Now, we've already talked about how understanding the things you can control versus the things you can't is key. This is such an important shift in mindset, but I want to take it even further. Because once you realize what's within your control, it really opens up a whole new way of thinking about social situations. Here's something I wish I knew earlier. It's okay to not be liked by everyone. Seriously, I can't tell you how many times I've stressed myself out about what other people think of me in social situations. If I said something awkward or didn't immediately click with someone, I'd spiral. I'd replay everything in my head 1,000 times, wondering what I could have said differently, thinking that I blew my chance at making a connection. I bet you've been there too, right? But here's the reality. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, the Stoics would tell you that you're setting yourself up for unnecessary stress if you try to make everyone like you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, really nailed this when he said, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This couldn't be more true when it comes to social anxiety. You cannot control how others respond to you, no matter how much you might want to. What you can control is how you respond to those moments. And that starts with giving yourself permission to just be, to show up exactly as you are, and accept that not everyone will be your biggest fan. And you know what? That's okay. Think about it. When you're walking into a room, you're never going to know what someone else is thinking. You could be overthinking something that they didn't even notice. Sometimes we make ourselves the center of attention in our minds, assuming that everyone's eyes are on us, critiquing every word or action. But in reality, everyone else is probably wrapped up in their own thoughts, their own little worlds. Once you start realizing this, it's kind of liberating. And listen, I know it's easier said than done, but here's the thing. You don't have to earn respect, attention, or validation from anyone. You already have inherent worth, and that's something the Stoics really emphasized. When you understand that your value isn't contingent on someone else's opinion of you, that's when your social anxiety starts to lose its grip. I know this can be a huge mental shift, but it really starts with making peace with yourself and accepting that, hey, I'm doing the best I can, and I don't need to prove anything to anyone. It's a process, and it's not going to happen overnight. But once you start internalizing this idea, you'll feel less pressure in social situations. The anxiety doesn't go away completely, but you stop letting it control your experience. Here's another part of the Stoic mindset that can totally change the way you deal with anxiety in social settings. Seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. Think about the last time you were in a social situation that made you anxious. Maybe you had to give a speech, attend a networking event, or just mingle at a party. Whatever it was, I'm sure there was a moment where your heart started racing and you felt that familiar unease creeping in. Now, instead of seeing that as a negative experience to be avoided, what if you saw it as an opportunity to practice and grow? Think about what the Stoics would say. They viewed challenges not as obstacles to overcome, but as opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. So the next time you're in a situation where social anxiety kicks in, try reframing it. Rather than thinking, I can't stand this, I hate feeling like this, try thinking, okay, this is an opportunity to practice staying calm, to practice being present, and to work on not letting my fear control me. This shift in perspective doesn't just make the anxiety easier to handle, it turns the experience into something empowering. Social situations no longer feel like they're working against you, but rather, they become an arena where you get to test your mental strength and emotional resilience. Here's the thing about overcoming social anxiety. It's not about making it go away entirely. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can magically eliminate anxiety with just one practice. But the goal isn't to remove anxiety, it's to not let it control you. And with Stoic principles, you start to realize that those moments that once terrified you are now just part of the process, part of your growth. Anxiety becomes a tool, not an enemy. And that leads me to one of my favorite Stoic practices that I think can be incredibly helpful when it comes to social anxiety. Visualizing the worst-case scenario. Sounds a little counterintuitive, right? But stick with me here. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. Essentially, it means thinking through the worst-case scenario ahead of time so that when it happens, you're not blindsided by it. And trust me, when it comes to social anxiety, it works wonders. Let's say you're about to go to a party, and you're already feeling those nerves kicking in. You're worried that you'll make a fool of yourself, or that you won't fit in. Instead of avoiding those feelings, try visualizing it. What's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe you stumble over your words or don't have a great conversation with someone. Maybe people don't notice you as much as you'd like. Now, imagine that scenario playing out. And guess what? It probably won't be as bad as your mind is making it out to be. In fact, you might realize that the worst-case scenario is often just an uncomfortable feeling that passes rather quickly. And when you've mentally prepared for that, you'll find that the fear of it happening isn't as overwhelming. By visualizing the worst-case scenario, you take away the power it holds over you. You start to see that it's not as catastrophic as your mind is telling you it is. And if things don't go perfectly, so what? You can handle it. That's what the Stoics would say. Whatever happens, you have the tools to deal with it. You're not at the mercy of your emotions. You can stay calm, composed, and confident because you've prepared for anything. Now, I know all of this can sound a little theoretical, and you might be wondering, okay, but how do I actually practice this in real life? And I get it. It's one thing to talk about Stoic concepts, and another thing entirely to put them into action when you're standing in a room full of strangers, heart pounding. But here's the thing, start small. You don't have to throw yourself into a big, overwhelming social situation right away. Start with little moments. Maybe it's making small talk with a coworker, or striking up a conversation with a barista at your favorite coffee shop. See how it feels to use these Stoic practices in these smaller moments. Practice shifting your focus from others' judgments to your own actions. Practice embracing imperfection, and remember that whatever happens, you'll be okay. These small moments are your training ground for bigger social situations. And over time, you'll notice that your anxiety doesn't have the same grip on you. It might still pop up now and then, that's totally normal, but you'll have the tools to handle it. You'll have the Stoic mindset that says, I can handle this, I'm in control of how I respond, and I'm going to show up as my authentic self, no matter what anyone else thinks. Before you go, I want you to promise me something. Take these tools, these simple but powerful Stoic principles, and start applying them. Don't let the fear of judgment or the pressure to perform stop you from showing up as your true self. You deserve to experience peace and confidence in every social situation, and you can do it. If you found this video helpful, let me know by liking and commenting below. I love hearing your thoughts, and I'd be super excited to hear about how you're going to start using Stoic wisdom to overcome social anxiety in your life. And hey, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on personal growth, Stoic wisdom, and living a more fulfilling, peaceful life. You've got this. I believe in you, and I know you're capable of anything you set your mind to. Take care, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you next time.